Hi, this is Donna from Cultured Food Life, and this is my kombucha video. And we're going to learn all about kombucha today. What is kombucha? Everybody's asking me, what is kombucha? Kombucha is a fermented tea that has been around for thousands of years and came from where they're tracing it to is China. It is essentially just tea with sugar in it that has a culture placed in it, and then the culture consumes the sugars and makes this tea bubbly and really, really good for you. When I have a lot of stories about all my cultured foods, how I found them, and the things that have happened to me, probably my favorite drink in the whole world is kombucha. It is something that really is super fun to drink and helped me rid myself of some addictions that I had been trying to lose for years. I was trying to overcome drinking so much diet pop. I was drinking it all the time. It was something that I couldn't free myself from. It was an addiction for me. And the harder I tried, the worse it got. But see, kombucha has the same carbonation, but it's naturally occurring carbonation. It's not something that's forced carbonation that's made in regular pop. It happens naturally and causes it to have good bacteria in it. And it made it bubbly. So I loved it because it tasted bubbly, and I loved the fizz. That is the thing I love the most about kombucha is the fizz. And so when I started drinking a lot of it, I found out that it was a liver detox, that it helped rid you of heavy metals and plastics and things like that the liver has a hard time cleansing out. Now, when you drink a lot of diet sodas and things like that, they have substances in them that are neurotoxins that can go straight to the brain and cause you to crave them over and over again, but also can cause a lot of neurological problems. And that is what happened to me. I was drinking a lot of pop, and when I got off of it, and I had been off of it for probably about 8 months. And I noticed that one day when I was at a family get-together, somebody brought me a diet soda so that I could drink it. And I didn't want to make them feel bad, so I drank it, and then I drank another, and then I drank another. Well, what happened to me, I had been clean of any kind of diet drinks for probably 8 months, but when I put it back in, I started getting dizzy, and I started not being able to see clearly. I was having trouble even driving or focusing. And I didn't connect the two. I didn't know that that was because I had started drinking it again. So when I came home, I quit drinking it, and then all my symptoms went away, so I thought it was a fluke. At my daughter's, it was a Christmas pageant, I was in charge of refreshments, and everybody brings sodas, pops, and there was no tea, there was no water, so I was drinking it all afternoon and all evening. And by the next morning or that night, I was dizzy again. I couldn't see straight, and I didn't know what in the world was wrong with me. I called my brother-in-law and asked him if I thought I had a brain tumor, because it was the same symptoms I'd had before. I mean, it pretty much ruined my vacation the last time. And it was doing the same thing. It was making me not able to function. What I discovered was I started realizing that on those 2 occasions, I had drank a lot of diet soda. It's been known that pilots don't drink these types of drinks, diet sodas, because they can cause neurological damage with their vision. And that's kind of a rule that all pilots know. And it is happening to me. Now, why didn't it happen before and I was drinking it all the time? I think once you get rid of it, and kombucha is such a great liver detoxer, it helps purge you of things like that, and then you put it back in. The thing I love the most about cultured food is that they kind of train you to help you realize that these foods aren't good for you. And you start wanting to consume these foods that make you feel so good that you don't want to go back to your old habits because you feel so bad. And so I'm not sure why it all happened, but I do know that I have not touched one from that day to this. So my entire family got off diet soda because of kombucha. And it was one of my husband's favorite drinks, and I was so excited that he liked cultured food. So I made tons and tons of kombucha for him. And at that period in his life, he was around, I think, 40 years old, and he started having trouble with his vision. He went to the doctor, and they found what they call a rapidly growing cataract in his right eye. And there was one in his other eye, but it hadn't developed yet. There's 2 different kinds of cataracts, one that ages over time, one that's super fast and grows in 3 to 6 months. He had the fast growing kind. So he's going to need surgery in the other one too. He had to have surgery in this eye because he couldn't see. So he went to the doctor, had the surgery, wasn't a happy camper. And I had been researching and just started making kombucha, and I had read that it was very helpful for things like cataracts. And he liked it, and it made me happy that he liked it, so I made him a lot, and he started drinking a lot of it. Well, after the first surgery, he kept going back because the doctor's like, we got to schedule your next one. But every time he went back, it had not progressed. And so after about 6 months, one day he went to the eye doctor, and the eye doctor sat back in his chair, looked at his eye and said, "Why in the world has that stopped growing? In all my years, I have never seen that kind of cataract do that." That's what he said. And from this day to that day, he has never needed the surgery. Now, was it kombucha? It was the thing he was drinking the most. I don't know for sure. All I know is that it stopped something that was growing rapidly and deteriorating. The other thing that I love about kombucha is it helped my daughter. My daughter Macy had irritable bowel syndrome. Every time she ate food, her stomach hurt. Everything she ate, she got more allergic to. So every week she was getting more and more allergic to things. I began to feed her a cultured food at every single meal, and she loved kombucha. And she drank that at every meal and in between meals and whenever she could because she enjoyed it. And after about 2 to 3 weeks of eating cultured foods and drinking kombucha on a regular basis, her stomach stopped hurting. Fast forward a year later, and Maisie can eat anything. All those things she was allergic to, she's not allergic to anymore. That is the story I hear over and over again from cultured foods. When you have allergies of any type, cultured foods tend to fix and cure those types of things. They really do seem to heal the gut where the gut is struggling with. And I wanted to show you some finished kombucha, what it looks like and the components of it. This is a finished kombucha that has been fermented for probably about 10 days. And as you can see, all of this down below is the tea that you're going to drink. And this little thing on top is what they call a Scoby. It's a combination of bacteria and yeast that forms on the surface of your kombucha. And what it does, can you guys see how it's sealing this off? And you can see the bubbles underneath. It seals it off, and the yeast that are in it, the good yeast that are in this, create CO2 and ferment the tea and make it bubbly. And this little Scoby thing seals it off and keeps the bubbles underneath. And it forms one. So whatever jar you're going to make kombucha in, it's going to form a Scoby the size of your jar. Now, when it first starts forming, you'll see little spots forming on the surface of the liquid. And people will think that that's mold, but it's not. It's the Scoby forming on top of the liquid. And it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger until it turns to look like something like this. Now, some people have done this in punch bowls, and they have a Scoby that is this big when they're done. I've seen people do it in huge gallon jugs, and they have these monster like hockey pucks, and they have big ones that are like manhole covers. Whatever you put yours in, you're going to get a big Scoby. And a Scoby helps to ferment the tea. Now, when we first started making this tea, my husband loved it, and my daughter said, "Never ever let Dad look in this jar because he'll never drink it again." It has been called the brain, it's been called the placenta, it's been called all kinds of different things, but it really is just a combination of bacteria and yeast that ferments foods and really will last your lifetime. You'll get a new one every time you make tea, so you're gonna have bunches of them to give to your friends, and plants love these. You can take some of these extra Scobies, they're great fertilizer. You can grind them up in your food processor or in a blender, throw them out in your garden. I had a neighbor who his tomato plants aren't too far from mine, and I had put just tons of Scobies in my garden. And so his tomatoes were growing and mine were growing up. Mine were getting so tall they were growing over, and then they were going back down. And mine were doing 3 times what his was, and he was standing over there scratching his head one day trying to figure out, we had the same soil, we weren't very far from each other, why my tomatoes were doing that and his were kind of shriveled on the vine. So I thought about telling him, but how do you explain this whole thing without going into a long lecture? So I eventually did tell him what it was. So now there's a product out called Mushroom Stuff, which sometimes people call these Scobies mushrooms. And they're not mushrooms. I don't want you to think it's any kind of fungi or anything like that, but it is really a common name that people use. But there is a product out there called Mushroom Stuff that they use fermented substance that looks and sounds just like these kombucha Scobies. And I do know for a fact that one of the big kombucha companies sells their Scobies to people to help for plant food. So I'm not sure that's what it is, but it's a little information to think it is good for your plants. Let me explain to you about why I love kombucha so much. It is a powerful, powerful liver detoxer. And the reason I know that is because when I first started to drink it, I noticed something in the first 3 days. No, we started out, it's best to start these things out slowly. It's best to not drink tons all at once, and I did, but I noticed that I started to smell. I couldn't believe it, and my daughter Macy came and told me the same thing. She said, I am taking showers, I don't know what's wrong with me. Your skin is your biggest detoxifier, and inside of kombucha is a powerful liver detoxer, and it will purge these types of heavy metals from your body, plastics, things like that get purged through the urine, through the bowels, and through the skin. And the more toxic you are, the more it will do. But what I found was after it subsided in a few days, we didn't need deodorant anymore. It was because deodorant is bad bacteria. You have to understand, when you have enough good bacteria in your body, you don't smell anymore. So this is a side effect. It is actually a good side effect because then you start to realize that there are things in your body that can help you to rid yourself of things like body odor. The other wonderful thing that I love about kombucha is that it also helps with things like whenever you have a cold or something on the back of your throat, it will clean that off. It's really, really good for things like respiratory problems. I have a CPA friend that my daughter Macy worked for one day, and I think she had bronchitis or something. She was coughing so badly that my daughter Macy said she looked under the table to make sure her lung wasn't under there, and she went to the store, got her some kombucha, and within 3 hours, Debbie had stopped coughing. One of my favorite things about kombucha is the good yeasts that are in it. There are a lot of people that just really talk about how yeast is bad for us and talk about candida, things like that. But there are good yeasts in kombucha and in other products that we just don't know about. And one wonderful thing about it, it's got a yeast called Saccharomyces boulardii. And what that is the #1 probiotic used worldwide in hospitals under a brand called Fluorostor. And it's naturally occurring in kombucha. It is wonderful for helping problems with, my sister had diarrhea, couldn't get rid of it, took Fluorostor, got rid of it, but she didn't want to keep taking it. It was expensive, and I told her it was in kombucha. She started to consume it, and it got rid of all the problems, worked just like the supplement that she was taking. It was really quite effective, and so to this day she drinks it. There's also a number of properties in kombucha that people aren't aware of, that it eats heavy metals in you. And I know this because if I put my hand in the kombucha pot to take out the mushroom, it will eat some of the metal off of my ring, my gold ring. And I had a reaction to it because it had gotten stuck. Some of the liquid had gotten stuck in my ring, and it was starting to eat away at the ring, and it started to irritate my finger. So it does that inside of you, which is a really cool thing. It's a very hard thing to find, something that will detox you from heavy metals. And also from like all the plastics that are in foods and things like that, it does that too. And that goes straight through the kidneys. And you can tell because when you first start drinking kombucha, you'll notice that you're going to the bathroom more. And then it kind of calms down. And let me explain to you about good yeast, because this is the cool part. When you have good bacteria and bad bacteria in your body, in your ecosystem, and good yeast and bad yeast in your ecosystem, they try to decide who's going to dominate inside of you. And what yeasts do is they shoot at each other. It's like a shootout in the old corral. They will shoot at each other to decide who's going to be dominant, who's going to survive, and who's going to rule. And Saccharomyces boulardii does that. It becomes a dominant, good yeast that helps all kinds of things. It helps so many things that I can't even list them all because people keep telling me, and it surprises me, all the wonderful things that it helps with. So we're going to show you how to make kombucha. We're going to make it right here in my kitchen. I'm going to show you it's super easy. It's a lot of fun, and you'll probably wind up loving it just like I do, because most people who drink kombucha, they don't talk about how good it is, they talk about how much they love it. So that's the wonderful thing, is that it not only is fun to make and easy to make, it tastes good. This is the ingredient list that you'll need to make kombucha tea. The first thing you're going to need is a jug or a glass jar. We're going to make 3 quarts. This recipe is for 3 quarts. You can double it or triple it, but this is the original recipe. And you want to keep the ingredients at the right measurements so that it will properly ferment. But you'll need a glass jar, or you can use a crock. And the crock needs to not be lead-based. It needs to be fairly new and food grade. You can even use a bowl too. You're also going to need 3 quarts of water and 1 cup of sugar made into tea. So this is our tea that we've boiled on the stove and steeped on the stove with tea bags. And you're going to need 3 quarts of that. And then you're also going to need some sugar. You can use different types of sugar, and we'll get into that, but you're going to need 1 cup of sugar, which can be different kinds, but you'll need 1 cup. And then you're going to need your starter culture, which is 1 cup of kombucha tea that's already been made. And the secret with this is the more you use of this, the faster your tea will brew and ferment. And you're also going to need a Scoby, and you can find these on my website at culturedfoodlife.com to get your tea started with. A clean cloth and a rubber band to put over top of your tea, like this, in your jar, so that it can ferment on your counter for 7 to 10 days. You're also going to need some bottles to put it in when you're done. Here's another thing that I use all the time to make kombucha, especially in the winter. This is called a Brew Belt. And what you do is you place this on your pot or your jar, and it will keep your kombucha at a perfect temperature, especially in the winter. And it will essentially make your kombucha kind of go like clockwork. You'll know exactly when it's going to be done. It keeps it about 80 to 85 degrees. So it is a really, really important thing, I think, to have in winter. That's probably the question I get the most, is that why isn't my kombucha fermenting? And it's usually because your kitchen is cold. You can get these on my site. Actually, there's a lot of things you can get on my site. You can get this Brew Belt on my site. You can get these bottles. Everything you need for kombucha you can get there. You can get the starter culture along with the Scoby. They come together. These are under starter cultures on my site. So everything except for the tea and the sugar you can purchase to make kombucha on my site. We're going to go ahead and make the kombucha now. And the first thing that you're going to need to do is to get some water, filtered water, and place it in a pot on your stove, 3 quarts of water. And I've got this to the point where it's boiling. But then you're going to need to add some tea to it to steep the tea, just like you would make regular tea. There's many different kinds of tea that you can use. I like green tea a lot, and I also like black tea, but I think green tea is a little bit more bubbly. Makes a more fermented drink, but black tea does great. And then there's other types of flavors of teas that you can use. There's the red tea from Africa, where it's rooibos, I believe is how you pronounce it. But my favorite one is jasmine. Jasmine makes wonderful kombucha. And one of the things I like about jasmine is these little things called jasmine pearls. Regular jasmine leaves aren't as strong as these little jasmine pearls, as you can see. They taste so, so good in kombucha. That's probably my favorite thing to make kombucha with, but I don't make it all the time because we make so much. But today we're going to use a combination of green tea and black tea to make kombucha. So I've got my water, 3 quarts of water that's boiling, or now it's steeping, and I'm going to place 2 green and 2 black tea bags into the pot and let it steep for 10 minutes. Now, what I like to do, and you can do this any way you want, but I like to add the sugar, which is going to be consumed by the culture in the fermented tea when it makes it. So you don't have to worry about having too much sugar in your tea, but you need to add sugar to the tea. And I like to do it when it's hot while it's steeping so that it will dissolve. There are many different kinds of sugars you can use. You can always use regular sugar if you're on a budget. It's going to be consumed out of it. But you can also use sucanat, which is like a raw sugar that has minerals in it. And also my favorite is coconut sugar. Now, if you use sucanat, you're going to have a little bit of a different taste. It ferments faster and it has kind of a barley taste to it, which I don't really like that well. So I prefer coconut sugar or regular sugar to make my kombucha. So we are going to add to our pot over there, we're going to add 1 cup. And then remember, this is going to be consumed by the culture after it's made. And what you want to do when you add it is just stir it a little bit, because it really needs to dissolve good. Otherwise, it's not going to ferment as well. So if you just stir that, and we're going to let that sit for about 10 minutes. And when that is done, we're going to let it cool. One of the things that will kill kombucha really fast is heat. You cannot put in hot tea to the kombucha culture because you'll kill it. So you got to make sure after you make it and remove your tea bags that you let it cool. And so the next step after we have let it cool, we're going to go ahead and make the kombucha itself and add the culture. So now we're going to take the tea that's cooled and place it in our jar to ferment with our culture. And you can put it in your crock, whatever you want to put in. But this is 3 quarts, and then you're going to put a cup of starter in this. Okay. Now we need our starter culture and our Scoby. This is the starter culture that was from previously made kombucha. So you always need to save at least a cup of starter. The more starter you add, the faster your kombucha will make. Sometimes if you're in a hurry or if it's cold in the wintertime and you don't have a heating belt, it's nice to add a little bit more starter culture and it will make it faster. So you want to add a cup of this into your pot or jar, and then you want to add a Scoby. I have a bunch here just to show you the different kinds. And we're just going to add a piece of it. You don't need a huge one. You can add the whole thing, you cannot add the whole thing, or you can just add a piece and it's going to sink usually. Sometimes it floats, doesn't matter, because you're going to get a new one formed on the top. Then you're going to take your cloth. I'm just using a linen cloth that's clean, and I'm going to place a rubber band around it to make sure the fruit flies stay out of this, because they like fermenting things and they will lay eggs in it, and that will ruin your kombucha, and you're going to need to start over and throw out your culture. It's not a good thing. So you're going to leave this on your counter for anywhere from 6 to 10 days, depending on how cold your kitchen is or how warm it is outside, whether you have a brew belt. And you probably put it in a dark corner away from sunlight, and you really just taste it every, about 4 or 5 days. Start tasting it. If it tastes sweet, it's not done. If it tastes vinegary, it's overdone. And it loses its bubbliness as longer it ferments. So you want to make sure that you kind of taste it and catch it right when it's not sweet, not too sour, tart, or vinegary. That's the perfect time to bottle your kombucha. I have some kombucha that's done over here in my pot. This is the pot I use every week, so I'm going to go ahead and bottle it for you and show you how to do it. These are the bottles that you should purchase or get. There's different kinds. You can use old GT Synergy kombucha bottles if you drink it. They're great for fermenting, but you want to make sure you use something that is thick glass, that is really safe for drinks that ferment and get bubbly, because you don't want it to break and explode, because they can if you buy some cheap kinds of bottles that aren't made for fermenting. These are my favorite. These have little flip tops and rubber seals, and they're thick glass. And what these little rubber seals do is they let some of the pressure escape from the bottle so that they don't explode. They're perfect for it, and these are actually Grosslin beer bottles, so if you drink beer and you have bottles like this, save them, and they're great for fermenting. And this also has different colors. You can buy a brown color. The green ones you have to get from the beer, but they also have the clear, which I like because I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to place a funnel on top, and then I'm just going to fill up my jar with the kombucha in my pot that has the plastic spigot. You don't have to have a plastic spigot. You can scoop it or ladle it. But you want to make sure it's not metal, because metal will be corroded by kombucha and it will get into your kombucha and not be good. And there you have, I like to fill it up. Hang on, I'm going to fill it up just a little bit more than that, because you want to leave about an inch right where that little lip is. And then you're going to seal it. And this is now ready to drink. This is ready to go in the fridge or drink. It's a little warm, so most people like to refrigerate it, but this will ferment a little bit longer in the fridge, slowly, because it's cool, and it's ready. It's ready to drink. And we're going to teach you a lot more videos about how to make fruit flavored kombuchas, bubbly kombuchas. So stay tuned. We're going to do more videos and teach you step by step how to make kombucha. But this is actually tastes like a sparkling apple cider. That's what it should taste like. Not quite as sweet as some of the ones in the store, but not too tart. This is some kombucha that has been in the fridge that's ready to drink. And I kind of like this bottle, so I got it out. We found this bottle at a flea market, and it's a Grosslin big bottle. So I thought I'd pour you some kombucha. It's super bubbly. You guys, this is probably one of the best things that you can drink. and it's got a multitude of things in it that will help you. And I sure appreciate you guys watching my video, coming in my kitchen and being a part of my little cultured food world that most people haven't even heard of, but it sure can help you and change your life and make you happier. You can find all these products and all the things that you need to make kombucha on my website at culturedfoodlife.com. There's all kinds of recipes, and there's a lot of recipes on there with extra things that you can do with kombucha, because it can be a lot of fun to make things in recipes that you can just add as an ingredient that will really make your food have more probiotics and more fun things to eat. Thanks for coming into my kitchen again, and thanks for entering into my tiny little world of cultured foods. I hope it helps make a difference in your life like it has mine.